That tractor, where'd you pick that up?
Well, that is an antique. That was built in 1959, and it was my father-in-law's, and he got him a new tractor a couple years ago, and I bought that off of him. And
still working though, right?
Oh yeah, hell, I've been out here mowing pastures with it. You can't beat them old ones. They're simple and reliable.
Yeah.
And builds all this lumber in here is everything I've cut off my own property. Oak trees I've cut down back here, and my neighbor that got the flagpole off of, he's got a sawmill he brings down. And
now, I don't remember these stalls being in here.
yeah, this was all open.
Yeah.
I've boarded everything up. Built me a tack room back there. Thought I had it sealed up pretty good, but we've had humidity so bad I had to put a dehumidifier in here.
Really? Just keep the tack from...
Yeah, I mean, these walls are 6 inches thick,
yeah.
full of insulation, but to keep, you know, you can see how my leather's turning green.
Right.
And so I had to put a dehumidifier in here to suck the moisture out of here.
Well, heck yeah.
But this is my little man cave. This thing is sitting 4.5 foot of concrete. And this thing right here weighs 3,995 pounds. So if I was caught outside, I'd get me a strap and
just strap yourself to that.
And the whole barn would go, but this thing would never come out of the ground. I think it's sitting on 5 yards of concrete.
Well, you'd have to have something solid, wouldn't you? And then you bolted that to you put the bolts in.
Those bolts there are 24 inches deep into that concrete.
Wow.
This is my beast. I just got my dies reworked. This is a blacksmith power hammer. What you do is, like this piece of steel I've been working on, you heat this bad boy up, push down your foot pedal, open her up, and this side's for drawing out, this side's for flattening. This thing will do 290 repetitions per minute. The farther you push down the pedal, but you don't want to hit cold steel, that's why I'm doing it nice and easy. But if you crank that sucker down, it'll go
oh, just hammer, 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 yeah.
It'll hammer the crap out of it. You can put a piece of wood in there and do it, but you don't want to just slam them dies together. They're S7 steel, which is shock absorbing steel, but you still don't beat the crap out of it.
Sure.
I got that off of an old boy in Mount Carmel. His granddad had bought that when his granddad had a blacksmith shop, and then they turned it into a machine shop. And I asked the old boy if he knew where there was a power hammer at, and he says, well, I got my granddad's, but I wouldn't sell it, but you can come look at it. I said, yeah, I'd love to see it anyway. So I went and looked at it, and he said, what's it worth? So I looked it up, and it was worth a bunch.
Oh, really?
And I went back and said, I can't afford what it's worth. And he said, give me $2,700, and he said, you can have the hammer. This mandrel, that's worth $1,000 right there. That's a cone mandrel for making the hubs for the wagon wheels. And then he gave me a blacksmith forge I got sitting back there, and he gave me a whole bunch of Babbitt equipment and stuff. He gave me a lot more than what I had to pay for just the hammer. But I had to rebuild it a little bit. I had to get the dies recut and put new, this is called the halve hammer. Because you see this big arm here that it pivots on, and then you got this strap here. So when that thing really gets to going full speed, this is like the shock absorber.
Oh.
And the old one was rotted through, so I took it out, laid it out, and it was 14 feet long. One continuous piece of leather.
Yeah.
So I called up my saddle maker, and he said, they don't make cows that big anymore. He said, I'll have to splice together some leather. I said, do whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
I said, I got to have 14 feet of leather to put that thing back together. But I took these dies out and took them into the machine shop and had them milled down, and then I couldn't get it back together. So I went to my old neighbor up here, and he's like a mini genius. And I said, nothing fits. And he said, you get a 5-gallon bucket of ice. He said, put everything you can in that 5-gallon bucket of ice. He said, just let it sit there for a few hours. Well, sure enough, steel will contract, and it contracted enough. I got everything put back together.
No.
But me and Christy were out here, sledgehammers and everything else, trying to drive these wedges back in before I did that. And they would absolutely would not fit. I mean, you could visually see that they were too big to fit in the openings.
Right.
And after I soaked them suckers for about 4 hours, everything just slid right together.
Slid right together.
So, it's been a long, drawn-out process, but I'm finally...
Was it worth it to have it?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Saves your arm.
Oh, yeah. Well, like this piece of steel here, I had a young kid come over one day. I had him take one of these sledgehammers, and I'd heat that thing up, and I'd lay it out there, and he would just keep hitting with the sledgehammer, and I'd just keep moving it. Well, you know, it took us like 20 times to draw each one of these ends out.
What are you making here?
Well, you see my little funky drawing?
Yeah.
This is for one of my clients. They want an S inside of a horseshoe, and this is going to be the S.
Okay.
But instead of having just one big flat piece of steel, I'm going to put little curly cues on the end.
Yeah.
And then put the S inside of a great big horseshoe, because their horse farm's called Serenity Farm.
Ah, okay.
So they want me to make that up for them, and you know, they're real good clients, so I'm like, yeah, I'll do it.
Sure.
Yeah, we had all this concrete poured, and I'd actually expected to get a little, that's what they call a 75-pound hammer.
Right.
Because every time this drops, it's dropping 75 pounds. Well, your most common ones are 25 and 50 pounds.
Right. And that one weighs how much?
Well, I had put a 2-foot deep slab of concrete right here, which was deep enough for a 25 pounder, and then I found that one. And that thing is actually excavated out like a pyramid underneath it. It's wider. It's 4.5 feet wide at the bottom.
Like a monolith kind of pour,
Yeah.
so.
Because what will happen, if you're not wider at the bottom of your concrete than the top, the hammering will literally hammer it up out of the ground.
Right.
So you got to have it tapered.
Keep it in the ground.
To keep it in the ground. So it was quite a little task. But yeah, now that I've about got everything here, well, I do. I've got everything here set up, ready to go. And now we got to start getting behind getting the house built again.
Gonna put up a log cabin?
Yeah.
Well, that's apropos. You got all your traps here?
Well, I got a really good deal on those. I've never done any trapping. I've always wanted to. And I was at an auction, and I'm sure that this lady, you know, must have been from St. Louis or Indianapolis or something. And everybody else was farm people from around here. And she kept bidding against me. But I got all this for like 50 bucks, which if you went and bought all that new, you're probably looking at $500 to $750.
He's like for rabbit or
what? No, muskrats, possum, coyotes. These are hide stretchers down here.
Hide stretching.
That'll stretch a fox, maybe a small coyote. That'd be a raccoon. These would be for muskrats. And we've got a pretty good wildlife population down here on this creek, and I always thought, you know, eventually I'm going to start trapping them suckers. But
get some pelts out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I've shot a couple coyotes around here. We're overrun with coyotes. I shot this big monster just right down the road last September. I took him in and got his hide. Well, he's being taxidermied right now.
Oh.
So, but, well, I do a little bit of knife sharpening for people. But I got my anvil and anvil stand. And this is my forge right here. It swings out. You take the anvil and anvil stand out, and you can swing out that forge. And then I've got oxyacetylene and propane over there. Because sometimes I got to do a little bit of welding. So I just gas weld everything. And then I got all my shoes and everything over here. This is my shop cart. When I'm shoeing the horse, I pull it out, and then you got everything from, well, the biggest I got in here right now is size 2s, and then the smallest I've got is got some pony shoes in there. But you can kind of see the You know, and I got draft horseshoes in there too. People usually bring the draft.
Don't be so long before you come back and visit.
Oh, wait a minute.